now, welcome to another week of 3 and Out. I am your host, Wayne Cavati, and I'm asking you to temper expectations as I was watching the Braves games prior to this show and had to drink my way all the way through that game. So I may have a little unhappy buzz going on right now. Joining me tonight and hopefully shouldering some of the load for my inebriated hosting skills are the two best co-hosts in fantasy football, Chris Fiamano and Mike Dutton. Fee, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good. I had a much better fantasy week this past week, but injuries are going to hit me now. So we'll be talking about that coming up here in a minute.
Yep. Dutton, how are you doing down there in North Carolina?
I'm good. Hold on. Oh, wait. The Phillies just hit another home run. I'm just kidding. Sorry. I'm doing great. It's fine.
I know.
I'm shell-shocked. PTSD.
Bryce Harper's good at baseball.
He's very good.
Apparently so is Nick Castellanos. Anyway, a word of advice to our listeners. What you're looking right now at are the three top leading scorers in our fantasy league. I mean, it's no coincidence. So, I thought of a word of advice to all of our listeners on how the three of us got here. And if you want to dominate your league, start a podcast. Because that's pretty much that's how we got there. We have to pay a little bit more attention. So start a podcast if you want to win your league. But that's all we got there. So let's go on to buy it or bullshit for the week, because we have quite a bit to get to. There's been some big happenings. You mentioned the injuries. We're in the bye seasons, and you may have joked around that the Phillies just hit another home run, but we're still waiting for the Patriots to score anything. So buy it or BS. Dutton, we'll start with you. Right now, not at the end of the season. I'm asking right now, is it time for wholesale changes in New England? And I'm talking about B.O.B., Belichick, get Zappy in there, do the whole thing. What do you think, buy it or BS?
I'd buy it, but it won't happen. Because he announced today that Mac Jones is starting this weekend. I buy the full changes. I mean, they're not going to fire Belichick, right? But at the end of the season, there's going to be a parting of ways in some capacity. But it is fantastic to watch the Patriots' demise when we all knew it was coming, except Bill Belichick apparently didn't know it was coming. So it's interesting.
Yeah. But there are rumblings that Robert Kraft is very not happy with with what's going on. There was a very in there. Fee, buy it or BS? What do you think about the Patriots wholesale changes that are needed?
I'm buying it, but it's not going to matter because, and I wrote that nothing's changing the guys on this team. And what I mean by that is nothing's changing the talent of the guys on the team. So, I don't, whatever changes they make, it's not going to make their team any better this year. Belichick, I think they're not going to do anything with him in season. I said that earlier in an earlier podcast. But even with changes, this team is still going to be bad.
Let me ask you guys both an honest question. They're playing Josh McDaniel this weekend, the Raiders. Let's say they legitimately, let's say they don't score. You're telling me that there's no chance that Belichick get fired if they don't put up a score in 12 quarters? Like, are you really telling me that against Josh McDaniel, nonetheless?
No, it would be 8 quarters, right? Because they scored 3 points against the Cowboys.
Okay, so no touchdown for 12 quarters.
Right, no touchdown. Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to consider. I mean, to be fair, any other coach in the league would be fired.
Yeah. Here's the thing, right? So I feel like Belichick is probably trying to throw the season, right? and he probably has some master plan where he's like, well, if I get a really great draft pick, I'll just dispose of Mac Jones and put together, start from fresh and put together another team. You don't think that Kraft and Belichick are speaking at all? They have to be talking about something.
I don't think they are. I think Kraft is mad that all their bad drafting has finally caught up to them. Think about all the years we said, what are the Patriots doing in the draft? And it finally caught up to them.
I have another thing to add to what Dutton just said. What about if all those guys that Belichick found, back when he drafted good, the Troy Browns and the Edelmans and all the Deion Branches, What if it was Brady that made him that good?
Right. Maybe it was.
What if there is no master plan going between the ears, Fee, right? Like, I agree with you. At this point, it seems like you're in the tank mode. You're going for your next quarterback. But what if everything that happened was Brady and the master genius that we think he is, he's really not?
Well, I think the key is that you have to have a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
Right. And look at every other team in the league. If you have a good quarterback, you have a good team. If you don't, you don't.
What were they before Brady? What were the Patriots before Brady when he was the coach with Bledsoe? Were they good?
I mean, they were good. They went to the AFC Championship game a couple of times.
And that one time they lost to Mark Sanchez.
Right.
To get to the championship. Yeah, to get to the championship.
Okay.
It's funny that you mentioned that if a quarterback does well, then your team does well, because the very next question in Buy It or BS is the Brockness monster, Brock Purdy, the key to winning a fantasy championship? There's a couple ways to answer this question. So, Fee, we'll start it with you. Buy it or BS, Brock Purdy is the key to winning a championship.
Fantasy-wise, he's not the key. However, if you have him on your team, you're doing phenomenally well, because over the last, I'd say, 2 weeks, he's had, excellent fantasy stats and put up excellent fantasy numbers for you. But I don't know that he's the key. Like, he's not the guy that's going to win you a championship. He's not a league winner, as they say, but if you have him on your team, you're starting him, and he's probably doing very well for you. But it's not just your quarterback fantasy wise. You need everybody to perform, and so that's why he's not necessarily the key. You need the rest of your team to perform as well.
Dutton.
Which is how I'm going to finish this answer. If you have Brock Purdy as your starting quarterback and you drafted him as your quarterback number one, I'm assuming the rest of your team is pretty good, because you did not waste a pick on a quarterback. If Brock Purdy is your number one quarterback, you probably have a number one running back in the top 5. You probably have a top 5 number one receiver. Yes, Brock Purdy would be a key. It doesn't have to be Brock Purdy. It could be a Brock Purdy type quarterback, but this year it's Brock Purdy.
But this year, okay.
Yes.
To your point, Dutton, if you put your eggs in that basket, look, he's having a great year right now. He's still not going to be a top 10 quarterback off the board next year, right?
Nope.
It's still going to be like, well, he's Brock Purdy, right? Like, it's going to come back to earth soon. You're building exactly what Dutton said. You're building this monster team, and then you have a guy that comes out here and he throws for 4 touchdowns and 300 yards a week ago. So I think he is right now this year. Thank you for clarifying that, Dutton. Right now, I think he's the key because of the team you're able to build, where you got Brock Purdy. And the guy's a guaranteed 2 touchdowns, it feels like. I don't think he's ever not thrown for 2 touchdowns.
That I agree with.
So, 8 million points to Dutton for realizing why it's so important to have a guy like Purdy. And those guys that he's drafted amongst, like, beyond the Herberts and the Burrows, like that second tier quarterback, he's the best of those. That's
right. You're drafting him in the same category as you're drafting who? Like Jordan Love?
Yeah.
Are you drafting Geno Smith? Are you what I'm like?
Those guys. He's the best out of those.
Right.
Speaking of great quarterbacks, let's turn our attention to the Cowboys. The next Buy It or BS, Dutton, we'll start with you. Are the Cowboys and the Bills the same team? And is that why they never play at the same time? Like, is that what we're looking at here?
They very well could be the same team, because the only difference is I think Josh Allen is better than Dak Prescott. But other than that, no, they're the same team.
You know what? I'm going to agree with that. I will make a positive comment about Josh Allen, and I agree that he is better than Dak.
Right. I mean, other than that, yes, they have a solid defense. They can run the ball if they ever choose to actually want to run the ball. They have weapons on offense, and if their quarterback doesn't turn the ball over in the red zone, they could win games a lot. So,
Fate.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with everything both of you just said. They are pretty much the same team, really good defenses. And their offense can be good when they put it together and their quarterback doesn't screw it up. So, yeah, they're pretty much the same team.
I feel like we hear that they're Super Bowl contenders, right? Every year we hear about how great their defense is. And it's like you said, when they can string it together, but that hasn't been the case. And this past weekend, They both had to play games they had to win against playoff teams that they're going to face down the road, and they flopped, right? Like, I feel like they're just the same team. One's AFC and one's NFC. They're both in the East. It makes sense. It's all coming. Right. All right. Our last buy it or BS is actually a 3-parter because it has to revolve.
Hold on, pause. And they're both coached by coaches with an MC in their name.
Wow. You did.
McDermott and McCarthy.
Yeah. You just dug deep. That's amazing. So they are the same team.
Right. There you go.
It's like
Irish coaches and they're the same team.
Sold.
It's like an unsolved mystery. Remember that show? Okay, so we had Devon A-Chain went off, and A-Chain went off and had another huge week, and it was barely noticeable that, like, I didn't realize he left the game hurt. Now the guy IR. Justin Jefferson is on the IR. James Conner is hurt, and Fee, tell me the guy's name again.
What game? What game? What? DeMercado?
DeMercado is like the hot guy on the waiver wire.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about him earlier. That's why I went to you. So my first part of this question: buy it or BS? A-Chain, Jefferson, James Conner. A-Chain is the most hurtful. Buy it or BS? Fee, losing A-Chain hurts your chances more than any of those other guys.
Well, fantasy wise, no. Because I feel like Justin Jefferson, if you must have drafted him either 1 or 2 in your league, and that's a big deal versus A-Chain, who was a waiver wire pickup for the most part. So fantasy wise, I think Justin Jefferson is probably the most hurtful to your fantasy team. But it also matters because of the team that they're on, right? So like Justin Jefferson on a kind of bad team, James Conner on a bad team. But Devon A-Chain is on a really, really good team who puts up a whole ton of points and so puts up a ton of fantasy points. And so obviously that's very hurtful to whoever has him in your league. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure anyone would want Kirk Cousins, and big trades or we were just, you didn't mention the
we'll get to that in a second.
Trading Cousins. But yeah, I mean, I think Justin Jefferson fantasy wise is probably more hurtful.
Dutton.
Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson's the most hurtful fantasy wise because when he comes back in 4 weeks from the IR, or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, because they're saying 4 to 8 weeks now. So whenever he comes back, he's most likely, I'm going to give you a nice segue here, Wayne, coming back to Colt McCoy as a quarterback. So I think that is a huge fantasy problem you're facing.
Yeah. To play devil's advocate, I think you're both right. Obviously, it's like Fee said, it's the first or second pick in the draft. But A-Chain, you got so late, and the depth at running back is frightening. The depth at wide receiver is a little bit more, like there's still Adam Thielens out there in some leagues, like people, not many, but people like that, you're going to, whereas in, for running backs on the waiver wire, like I just had to ask you the guy's last name that is going to be the hottest waiver wire this pick, because I didn't even know it, right? Like that's where we are. So the devil's advocate there, shifting the buy it or BS. Dutton, we'll start with you because you brought up Colt McCoy. Because Justin Jefferson's now on the IR, because the Vikings are a terrible team, and because there's even rumblings that if they're even more terrible, they're not even going to bring Jefferson back. They're just going to let him rest. Buy it or BS? Kirk Cousins is traded at the deadline. Dutton.
I buy it. His name has been mentioned with already too many teams. I'm buying it. It's hard to trade a quarterback midseason. It's hard for a new team that he goes to adapt to a new quarterback and him to adapt to a new offense. I hear all that, but I buy it. I think there's enough teams out there that are going to take the risk, try to make the playoff with Kirk Cousins gunslinging it.
What teams are looking at him? Are looking to trade for him? What are the rumblings?
The Jets. I've also heard rumblings of, hold on, give me a second. The Falcons.
Crazy.
Hold on, give me one more second. I'm thinking.
Your Bucks wouldn't be interested. They're all in on Baker. I know Fee would be upset.
I think they're all in on Baker. Hold on, you go to Fee, and I'll think about anybody else as I'm
So, Fee,
thinking.
what do you think about Cousins, buy it or BS? He's traded at the deadline or before the deadline.
I'm gonna say BS. For all the things basically that Dutton just said that he knows of. But big trades are rare in the NFL in season.
Yeah.
How many years is left on? Is Cousins on the last year of his
This
contract?
is it. This is it. This
Yeah.
is
So
the
like
end.
it would. So it could happen because he's basically just a rental for a year.
Yep.
But like you said, Dutton, he's going to have to learn an offense. They're going to have to get him acclimated. He's going to have to get and honestly, what team other than the Jets is actually that could be a playoff team with a good quarterback? I think really it's only the Jets.
The Falcons.
The Falcons,
Colts.
weapons in the Colts, but the Colts aren't for Kurt. They're happy with Gardner.
Well, yeah, they're happy with Minshew, and yes, Anthony Richardson got hurt, but like now you're throwing in another quarterback into the mix. I don't know. It's just kind of hard for me to fathom it. I think the only way he gets traded is if it's to the Jets, just because I feel like they have the best team that could use him. But I don't know. Like I said, big trades are rare, and I don't know that any team would give up enough, draft capital to get him. So I don't know.
And then lastly, which is the guy for the Cardinals? Or like we said, DeMarco,
DeMercado.
Amari DeMercado is the big name on the waiver wire. And then I don't know if you saw just several hours ago, but the Cardinals posted their depth chart, and even though he's questionable, Keontae Ingram's the number one. It's not, So buy it or be. I mean, he's going to be the top waiver wire pickup this week because which one do you go after? I'm not going to do a buy or BS. Fee, what do you think?
Well, I think if you're going after somebody, it's got to be DeMercado just because of what he's shown you in the passing game, and how they used him. Keontae Ingram, he's coming back from injury, I think.
Yeah.
And so while he could be their number one guy, maybe they use him as like their, running through the tackles type of guy, and then they use DeMercado as their third down receiving back. With Arizona as not great as they are, they're probably going to be coming from behind in most games, and so you kind of want the receiving back, I think, in that case. Yeah. And so I feel like it would probably be DeMercado over Keontae Ingram if you had to choose.
What do you think, Dutton?
I kind of agree with just because of the receiving yards out of the backfield. And Fee said it. I mean, the Cardinals are scrappy. The Cardinals are in games, but they're not going to win a lot of games. But their offense moves the ball. I mean, say what you want about them, but Josh Dobbs has proven that it's his team. I'm sorry. Like Kyler Murray, you're not coming back to be a quarterback for the Cardinals. So I go with DeMercado.
And I think you nailed it. They're fun to watch, right? Like they try so hard. Right?
They're scrappy. They're fun to watch. That they're gonna be in every game. So
they're gonna show up. All right, so let's move on to locks of the week. Last week we took the L because of my Texans. No, we took the win. I'm sorry. We were gonna go with my Texans, but we decided last minute to go with Fee's pick of the Eagles, and we wound up getting it right. So we are now so that makes us 4-1 on the year. And then I moved to 4-2 because I took the Texans. Dutton moved to 2-3 because you took the Jets. Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Fee, you moved to 4-2 as well. You took the Eagles. So we're 4-1 on the year now. And that leads us to this week because we're as close to geniuses as you're going to get to picking the locks of the week. So Fee, we'll start with you here. Who are you picking this week?
I'm going with the Denver Broncos plus 10.5 against the Chiefs. It's the Thursday game. We all know that the Thursday game is usually a crappy type of game. The Chiefs have not covered double-digit favorites in years. I feels like, I don't know, that's probably not exactly true, but I feels like it's been forever. It's certainly been several games for sure. And the Kansas City, they don't blow you out. They don't keep their foot on the gas. There's always the backdoor cover. There's always Andy Reid just kind of lets teams hang around and they just kind of win by a few points here or a few points there. I think they've won only one game by double digits this year. And the Broncos, as bad as
They're bad.
they are also a decent team on offense. Go look at it. Russell Wilson is like the number 6 quarterback in the NFL right now, which is crazy to think about. You'd never really think that, but it's true. Their offense is halfway decent, so I feel like they should be able to cover the 10.5.
Fair enough. I think it's one of those. Remember the Jaguars with Blake Bortles, right? And they were just getting blown out every game. So Bortles was one of the best quarterbacks that year. I think that's the Russell Wilson effect. But to your point, it's working, right? They are scoring points. I do agree with you there. So yeah, big. That's a big spread. Dutton, who do you got?
I'm taking the Bengals -2.5 against the Seahawks. I mean, I've been down on Joe Burrow, but last week he looked like Joe Burrow, and I think the Bengals are going to build on that momentum. So I'm taking the Bengals.
All right, so I can't figure it out. I have 2 picks here. One, as you can see in the spreadsheet, is the 49ers, who are giving 6 to the Browns. And then the Colts were playing the Jaguars, getting 4. I'm kind of like on the Minshew mania. So I know that the Jaguars are coming back from 2 weeks in London. They gave everything they had to get that huge win against Buffalo. I'm not saying they don't win this game, but it may be a field goal, right? So I kind of like that Colts pick. You got Jonathan Taylor. They're saying they're kind of taking the foot on, they're letting him put the pedal to the metal this week. So I kind of like the Colts there. And the 49ers, I just think, are ridiculously dominant right now. And the Browns have likely PJ Walker at quarterback, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's possible that Deshaun Watson doesn't play, and if that's the case,
Yeah,
I would,
he didn't practice.
He didn't practice. I would 100% take the Niners -6 if you can still get it. If
That's what I'm saying.
Right. So the thing is that no, you don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be, and I feel like Vegas probably doesn't really either, which is why this point spread is still only at 6. You find out PJ Walker starting and Deshaun Watson isn't active or out, yeah, that number's going to skyrocket.
Yeah, but don't forget the coming off a big win, West Coast traveling to East Coast time zone, all that impact. Vegas pays attention to that stuff. Yeah. So it's going to go up, but it might not go up as much as we think.
Yeah.
If you could get 49ers at 6 with PJ Walker, that's my pick. But I'm going to go Colts. I'm going to be a little risky this week. I'm going to go the Colts +4 against the Jaguars. Who I think out of these 3 picks, I think I like the 49ers the best, but I think I like the Bengals out of those 3 picks. And the only reason, Fee, I agree with everything you said, but the one thing I do agree with you most about is it's Thursday night. And I feel like maybe Denver doesn't even show up at all, because it is bad football on Thursday nights.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Colts and the Bengals. So I like both of those. So I'm good with either one of those.
Right, let's go with the Bengals. Let's go with the Bengals. What I was going to say is the other thing is be careful. Kelsey might not play, right?
Right.
That's right. Kelsey's dinged up. Yep.
Right. So that could change that. Yeah, just pay attention to that. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, he has practiced twice, but I also was, just talking about it. And it's the Broncos. It's not a big game. It's short rest. Maybe you just put Noah Gray out there and let Kelsey rest it and get a good for the next big matchup.
Right.
So moving on to stacks of the week. Fee, I won last week with one of your stacks of the week. So woohoo!
Yeah.
Let's hear who you got this week.
All right. I'm gonna start us off. I know you just talked about the Jaguars and the Colts, but I really like the Jaguars stack this week. Trevor Lawrence is 7,600. Calvin Ridley is only 7K. And you can even throw Evan Ingram in there because tight end, we all know, is the dumpster fire normally, except for maybe last week. But Evan Ingram only had 5,500. And the Colts D, not great. They can get scored on. So for fairly cheap salary wise for all 3 of those guys, it's a pretty solid stack. And you could absolutely come back with Jonathan Taylor or a Zach Moss, or even a Michael Pittman, I would be okay with.
So you're confident with Jonathan Taylor this week?
Potentially. I don't know what his salary is. It would really just depend on that, I think. I wouldn't want to spend up for him. If he was like over 7,500, I think I'd probably go another route. I think Michael Pittman's only 6,800. So I mean, Minshew likes to chuck it around. So
Yeah.
I'd rather have Pittman, I think, in that case, save some salary.
Yep.
Stack number 2, I have the Bengals. Dutton just talked about them being -2.5. Playing the Seahawks. Joe Burrow, only 7,500. Jamar Chase, the obviously highest salaried receiver at 9,300. So you're going to have to pay for him, but I think it's worth it. Seattle has one of the lowest defenses against the pass in the NFL right now. And oh, by the way, you can come back with DK Metcalf at only 7,500, which I'd totally be okay with because Cincinnati's defense is not great either. I also really like Justin Fields this week with DJ Moore. I know they both crushed it last week. Maybe people will be off of them because of that. I think you stay with them this week against Minnesota, and come back with Jordan Addison with Justin Jefferson being hurt. Fields is 8,500. DJ Moore is 8K. Addison is only 6,700. So I like that stack this week as well. And you could also I wanted to throw this one in there too. The Dolphins. You could absolutely throw the Dolphins in there again this week. You got Tua, you got Tyreek, you got Waddle, you got Mostert now with Achane hurt. I know Jeff Wilson is coming back, but I think Mostert should get most of the carries in this game. So yeah, and actually I wrote up down below. I wanted to go with a couple of one-offs. I like Waddle at 6,800, and I like Michael Pittman at 6,500.
Yeah, I think Mostert is full speed ahead. I don't think Jeff Wilson, I don't think he'll play this week because you have the 21 days before you have to technically activate him. I don't think he's going to be ready. So I think Mostert is the guy there. I don't think you have to worry about Wilson. Yeah, I like those picks. I bet you the Justin Fields one is going to be high ownership. I bet you everyone's going to buy into that combo after last week, especially against the Vikings. So moving on to the starts and sits portion of the show. Gentlemen, we got crushed on sits last week because we went with the Jaguars against the Bills, and Lawrence was a good sit. He did throw for 315 yards, but not much else. But Etienne and Ridley both had nice days. They were both up there towards the top and probably could have been starting. But we did really well on the sits. So still keeping our percentage high. So let's do it and let's win people games this week. Dutton, we'll go right to you with quarterbacks. And who are you starting this week?
I'm starting Jared Goff against the Bucks. There's gonna be a lot of attention on that game because the Bucks are wearing the creamsicle jerseys this weekend, but they are the Detroit Lions of 2023, not of 1992, right? Or whenever they were pretty bad, 1997, whenever. So I'm starting Jared Goff.
Fake.
I'm starting Justin Fields this week against Minnesota. I think he's gonna double up and come back again with another great game.
I'm gonna go crazy here, guys. I'm digging deep. I'm saying to start Desmond Ridder, and I'm going to tell you 2 reasons why. One, they're back home, and he's never lost at home. Did you see that? Like dating back to high school, this guy's never lost a home game, anywhere.
That's crazy.
Secondly, we just saw what Justin Fields did to the Washington Commanders, and when you look at the Commanders' wins, they were against like the Broncos and someone else really bad. So I don't think the Commanders are very good. But my third thing is. And we kind of text about it. The Falcons traded for Van Jefferson, right? Is there a possibility that they saw that Ridder can throw for 300 yards, and now they're just like, all right, we're gonna let him
loose.
We're gonna just turn him loose. We're gonna get him more wide receivers that he probably won't throw to, and it's gonna be the Jonnu Smith show because that's what Desmond Ridder does. But no, seriously, I think he has a big week this week, and he does well against a really, really bad team. But I know we don't want to lock him in. Who would you guys like to lock in? Who do you feel comfortable?
I'd go with Goff.
I'll start Goff any day. Okay, moving on to running back. Fee, this time we'll start with you. I like your pick.
Yeah, I'm going with Isaiah Pacheco. against the Broncos, who are dead last in the NFL against running backs.
Dead last.
Period. End of story. Going with
I
Pacheco.
like that pick. Me.
Dutton, you.
I'm going with James Cook against the Giants, just because I feel like the Bills are going to get out to a big lead against a team that's depleted, depressed, and deflated at this point in the Giants. And then James Cook will just do some ball control, and he'll end up with 100 yards and maybe a touchdown.
James Cook will cook. I'm going to go. I just said it earlier. I'm going Raheem Mostert. I don't think Jeff Wilson plays. I'm not afraid of any of their other alternatives. It's his show. And Fee, you said it earlier. This team scores a lot of points. So who do we want? I like Pacheco here, but
I do too.
Let's do Pacheco.
I like Mostert, but yeah, Pacheco's good.
I mean, Mostert is almost like a no duh at this point.
Yeah, right.
To be honest with you. And especially against the Panthers, who have allowed 8 rushing touchdowns, which is the second most in the NFL right now. You know, like it's even more of a no duh. Wide receiver, I'll start. I'm going to Drake London. I think that this is they broke out last week. You know, London had an actual fantasy worthy game, and the Commanders have allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers this year. I believe it was 9. So ring them up. Dutton.
I'm starting Jacoby Myers against the Patriots. I think the Raiders have found a true number 2 in Jacoby Myers, and why not?
Revenge game.
Yeah, I was just gonna say revenge game.
Right.
B, Teddy Ballgame will like this. Teddy Ballgame, longtime listener, Teddy Ballgame called me asking what he should do with this guy. So will you think?
You should start him. Zay Flowers going up against the pass funnel defense of Tennessee, who is 27th against wide receivers in the NFL. So fire up Zay Flowers this week.
I like all 3 of these guys. I feel like we go Flowers every week. I like
go Jacoby.
I feel like the revenge game is where we have to go here. And Dutton, I think you're right. He's really become a really good number 2.
He really has. Like,
it's impressive. Tight end Fee.
So I wrote here, I hate both of you, because I was looking at who to start at tight end, and I was like, oh, this guy. Oh, Wayne's got him. And I was like, oh, how about this guy? Oh, no, Dutton's got him. And I was like, Jesus. So I'm starting Evan Ingram this week against Indianapolis. I talked to him about him a little earlier in the FanDuel segment. So start Evan Ingram.
Dutton.
Dallas Goedert against the Jets. I don't think that Jets defense is as strong and elite as one might have predicted at the beginning of the year when they said they were the greatest defense of all time. And I think Dallas Goedert will find many open spots.
I'm going to say this. I picked Logan Thomas. The Falcons are allowing 9.2 points per game to the tight end, and him and Howell seem to have a nice little connection. But I say all that to tell you that I was going to pick Goddard, but Dutton had already picked him. So if he is on board and I'm on board, I think Goddard's our pick this week.
I think it is.
Pretty
Let's
easy.
do it.
So reviewing our 3 and out starts of the week, you got Jared Goff, Isaiah Pacheco, Jacoby Myers, and Dallas Goedert. Let's move on to the sits. Fee, we're going to start with you because we just talked about him earlier in the show.
We did, and people aren't going to like this, but I think you should sit Brock Purdy this week going up against Cleveland's vaunted defensive line. I just think that as good as he's looked, they'll still win this game, I think. I would hope anyway, as good as San Francisco is. I just don't think he's going to put up some big numbered stats like he has the last couple of weeks against the Cleveland Browns. So sit Brock Purdy.
Is that defensive line as vaunted as the Cowboys defensive line that he threw for 4 touchdowns against?
Man, who knows?
But Purdy is a lot like early Tom Brady, right? Like he didn't get you big fantasy numbers all the time, but his team
just wins you games.
Yeah.
He's going to win.
Dutton.
Okay, so this is a very controversial sit, as all mine are this week, according to Wayne in our group chat. But I'm sitting Kirk Cousins because I think there's too much conversation going on around Kirk Cousins, and I think all of a sudden out of nowhere it's going to be a phone call to the sideline. I'm going big on this call, and they're going to sit him because he's going to be traded by Monday. It's like, get him off the field, get him off quick.
If that's your rationale, I'm more on board with it because my only answer to you is they're playing the Bears. Okay,
I understand. I understand, and in reality, I hear you. So this is why I put him on there. I just don't think he's going to have the numbers that you're expecting him to have against the Bears. There's no Justin Jefferson.
Maybe that could be.
So that's why I'm sitting. So
I'm gonna sit, and it made me happier after we talked about our lock of the week with the Bengals. I'm picking Geno Smith. The Bengals are very aggressive in the secondary. They have a lot of interceptions this year, and I'm just not on the Geno Smith train this year as I was last year. Who do we want to lock in?
Geno Smith.
Yeah, Geno.
Seems pretty easy. Running back. Who? We started with Fee Dutton. We'll go to you this time.
I'm sitting Austin Eckler because it's his first game back. Yes, they're coming back from a bye. He's still banged up, and he is going against a good defense in the Cowboys, who needs to bounce back. This is a must-win game for the Cowboys early in the season. Right? It's crazy to think that it's a must-win game for the Cowboys.
Yeah. Fee.
I'm gonna sit Zach Moss this week, just because I know he looked good last week with Jonathan Taylor back, but if they give more carries to Taylor, and kind of ramp him up a little bit more, he's almost in a running back by committee, going up against Jacksonville. So I'm gonna sit Zach Moss this week.
I'm kind of picking my sit to kind of put some negative, the reverse jinx in the air and hope he does well. But man, that Saints defense is tough. So I'm going to say you have to sit Dameon Pierce this week. They have yet to allow a rushing touchdown this year.
Yeah,
that bode well for running back. Plus, Tunsil, who finally came back last week, missed practice today. So if we're back to an offensive line in shambles, it's even more trouble for Dameon Pierce. Who do we want to lock in?
I want to lock in Pierce, and here's why. I understand Fee's argument, but I think Zach Moss is going to be a quality over quantity. I think he's going to get a lot with very little touches. Does that make sense? He's like one of those guys who's going to put like 9 touches, and he's going to get you like 19 points on those 9 touches or something.
And I could still see it being 45% share until like Jonathan Taylor now getting the 55%.
Right.
I think Zach Moss is going to be on the field a lot. Fee, are you on board with that?
Oh yeah, I'm on board with Pierce. Yeah.
All right, let's go to wide receiver. And again, maybe this is me being biased and hopeful, but the Texans have only allowed 1 touchdown, passing touchdown, and I'm going to say sit Chris Olave because they're going to put everyone on him and make Michael Thomas beat them. Fee.
I'm going to sit Amari Cooper this week against San Francisco, especially if PJ Walker is their quarterback. And I just realized who Dutton's sit is, and can't wait to hear why.
Right, because I disagree with every one of his sits.
Okay, so you're going to hear why I'm sitting Michael Pittman Jr. because, listen, I know it's Gardner Minshew, but I think this is a game where the Colts are going to be like, you know what? We're just going to pound the heck out of you. And it's going to be Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor, 3-yard screen pass to this tight end. Every now and then throw a deep ball that's incomplete to Michael Pittman just so that we're going to throw every now and then. But I feel like this is ball control. That's why I'm sitting Michael Pittman Jr.
Fee, you don't agree with that?
Not really. I kind of like Michael Pittman Jr. this week, just because I think people are going to think that that's what they're going to do is just try to run the ball. And Jacksonville,
everyone's going to think like me, and then the
Jacksonville has a pretty good run defense, and I feel like the Colts are going to have to throw the ball more often than you think. And Minshew looked good, and I think Pittman will be a beneficiary of that.
Didn't they just hold the Bills to like 10 yards rushing?
Yeah, something.
I'm looking real quick.
Yeah, but the Bills don't try to run the ball, really. They pretend to run the ball.
They had 25 yards rushing. I'm sorry.
See, they pretended for 25.
I like Amari Cooper because I
do too.
Again, I am sitting. Well, yeah. So I think Amari Cooper is the safest bet. Tight end. Dutton, we'll start with you.
I'm sitting George Kittle, and I'm not alone in this. People, only Wayne disagrees with me, and you'll hear why in a second. He hadn't had a touchdown all season, and he had 3 last week. No, he's not doing that again. He's going to get like 8 targets for like 42 yards and 4 catches.
Fair enough. Faye, you agree?
So I wanted to sit George Kittle too, and here's why. George Kittle has averaged 3 catches a week up until last week. He's been more blocking, and he's a really good blocker, so might as well, but he's been more so blocking for the Niners and Purdy. And he's very touchdown dependent fantasy wise. So in the first 3 weeks of the season, George Kittle hadn't done diddly squat, and then all of a sudden last week he scores 3 touchdowns and has crazy points, but it's all because he scored touchdowns. So he's very touchdown dependent. If he doesn't catch touchdowns and he only catches 3 balls a week, that's a big problem for you to start fantasy point wise. And with the Browns defense, if they're any good, or if they're as good as everybody says they are on paper, he's going to need to stay in and block more. So this game as well. So I wanted to say George Kittle also, but since Dutton took him, I'm going to sit Darren Waller going against Buffalo, just because the Giants offense is just bad.
Yeah.
Just bad.
Bad.
And it's only going to get worse if Daniel Jones doesn't play.
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee is my sit of the week. It just seems like, he had his best year last year, and I know it was a mixture of quarterbacks that were feeding him the ball, because 2 of them couldn't even throw further than 5 yards. But Matthew Stafford, when he has his wide receivers going and he plays a soft defense, the Cardinals defense, he should tear apart. The tight end seems to disappear, and it's going to be, I just feel like it's the Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So who do we want to lock in? I mean, look, I disagree, but there's 2/3 of you that like Kittle. So let's lock him in and go bold, even though
here's the thing, to back up Fee's point, the dude had 3 catches last week, but all 3 of them were touchdowns.
Oh, I know. That was 3 catches, touchdowns. I just don't know. Like, if you drafted George Kittle, I don't know who your backup is that you would start.
Right.
That's why I'm not I agree, but we could roll with them. So your sits of the week: Geno Smith, Damian Pierce at running back, Amari Cooper Dupe at wide receiver, mainly not because of Cooper, but because of the quarterback situation, and Kittle because Dutton and Fee are nuts. So that wraps up another show. I don't know. I don't think there was anything we missed, and there was a lot to cover this week. So was there anything else you two would like to add?
No.
I got nothing.
They got to figure out these buys. That's all I got to say about
that. Oh my God. Right. And then there's like none next week, or like 2.
Right. And then there's like 12 the next week.
Like, what's going on, you guys? Get it together. You know who's not going to be on a buy at all this season? Us. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to 3 and Out.